Think back to a time when dinner wasn't simply fuel, but a story. Picture the 1950s American kitchen, the oven's warm glow, families gathering after the war, and homemakers experimenting in a world of canned pineapple and inexpensive bacon. Now imagine one dish that combined all that: comfort meatloaf, wrapped in sizzling bacon, crowned with a sweet pineapple ring. It sounds almost too bold for its era. But it happened. Why has this version of meatloaf, once a centerpiece on mid-century tables, almost vanished? What made the pineapple ring so significant that cooks dared to place fruit atop their savory loaf? And what does this tell us about changing tastes, shifting economics, and kitchen culture in post-war America? In today's video, we are going to uncover the mystery behind this recipe, its origin, its moment in time, and why many households quietly stopped making it. We will reveal how this dish bridged tropics and homestead, sweetness and savory, and how it ended up in the shadows of American food history. If you love food stories that are more than just "here's how to cook it," then stay tuned. Because this one carries both nostalgia and a little suspense, and by the end you may wonder why it disappeared. Imagine walking into a mid-century kitchen, Formica counters, apron-clad homemakers humming about wartime rations, and the oven timer tick-tocking toward dinner. In that era a bold dish appeared, a meatloaf wrapped entirely in bacon and crowned with pineapple rings. That very recipe is what we are uncovering today. The story begins with the classic American loaf of meat, a dish born in the 19th century to stretch scarce resources. According to food historians, the earliest American meatloaf recipes emerged in the 1800s, using cold scrap meats, bread and eggs to feed families affordably. By the 1950s the loaf had evolved, cheap canned pineapple, bacon and novelty glazes entered the scene. A vintage Australian version titled Meatloaf with Pineapple used crushed pineapple and topped with bacon rashers. That pineapple ring wasn't merely decoration. It symbolized the post-war exoticism of tropical fruit, the optimism of the kitchen with modern convenience, and the merging of sweet and savory in one dinner plate. Envision your grandmother picking up that hot loaf, hearing the bacon sizzle and the pineapple juice glisten. It connected comfort food with aspiration. So why did this showstopper fade into obscurity? As health trends shifted, convenience cooking changed, and the flamboyant plate presentation of bacon-wrapped loaves gave way to simpler casseroles, the dish quietly vanished from many tables. But under the bacon weave and sugary pineapple sits a story of cultural moment, post-war plenty, canned fruit glitz, and the American appetite for novelty. Today, we revive it. By exploring its origins, its peak moment and its decline, you will see that this isn't just a recipe, it is a snapshot of American kitchen culture at a turning point. Stay with me, because by the end you may ask, why did this once celebrated main go missing? And what can it tell us about the food we love today? Picture this, an autumn afternoon in America circa 1958. Russet leaves fall outside a cozy kitchen window, canned pumpkin is stacked on shelf, and someone lifts a tall, featherlight layer cake with cinnamon fragrance into the oven. That cake? It was the iconic, slightly extravagant pumpkin spice chiffon layer cake. Yet today, this cake has nearly vanished from home-bake repertoires. Why? And what cultural moment did it capture before disappearing? The chiffon cake itself was invented in 1927 by a Los Angeles insurance man-turned-baker named Harry Baker. He used vegetable oil and beaten egg whites to make a cake that was richer than an angel food cake yet lighter than a butter cake. By the late 1940s it became a national sensation in the US, marketed as the first really new cake in 100 years. Then in the 1950s, autumn baking trends began transforming it: pureed pumpkin, warm spices, layer cake presentation. The result, a cake that fused novelty chiffon texture with tradition, pumpkin pie flavor, a dessert bridging Thanksgiving table nostalgia and modern convenience. Imagine the delight, a cast iron re-envisioned for layered elegance, homemakers offering slices to guests, kids exclaiming over the fluff. For those families, the cake was more than dessert, it was celebration. And then as the 1960s and 1970s brought new baking trends, fat-free warnings, and simpler recipes, this ornate layer cake lost its showroom shine and slipped into the shadows of America's dessert history. Now when it re-emerges in a handwritten card from a vintage cookbook, it evokes wistfulness for kitchens of yesteryear. Today, by reviving the pumpkin spice chiffon layer cake, we are not just showcasing a recipe, we are resurrecting a cultural moment. A moment when pumpkin was daring beyond pie, when layers and height mattered, when baking said something about optimism in post-war kitchens. Step into a 1950s dining room, a warm glow from the chrome and formica kitchen, the hum of the electric oven, and a golden bubble dish carried from stove to table. That dish is the creamy corn and bacon casserole with pimento, a side that once held pride of place but has almost vanished from American households. Why did it sparkle one Thanksgiving and then disappear? What secret ingredient sent it over the edge of trend and into oblivion? If you stay for the rest of this video, you will uncover how a simple side dish bore witness to social change, convenient cooking, and the taste revolutions of post-war America. In the era following World War II, the American kitchen embraced foods, convenience mixes and novel combinations. Corn, symbol of abundance, became a star in casseroles. Cookbooks from the mid-20th century show mixes of sweet corn, creamed corn, and flavor additives like pimentos and cheddar cheese. Bacon, long a luxury, found its way into these casseroles as a flavor enhancer and status symbol. One recipe for bacon corn casseroles instructs cooks to cook bacon, sauté onion in butter, add sour cream and corn, bake 30 minutes, and serve hot. The addition of pimentos provided a splash of red, a novelty color in presentation, bridging savory and festive. Imagine your mother, or your grandmother, layering golden kernels, cheddar-flecked pimentos, and crisp bacon pieces, stirring in butter and cream until the mixture glowed. She placed it on the holiday table between roast turkey and cranberry relish. The salty bacon, sweet corn, and bright red pimentos represented prosperity, modernity, and comfort all at once. That dish carried memory, children squabbling for the bacon bits, the oven timer singing its final ding, the communal clink of casserole dishing spoons. Yet as decades passed, its shine dulled. Health trends, simpler sides, and changing tastes made it feel heavy, dated, or simply unnecessary. And so the casserole began to fade. Picture the warm scent of percolating coffee in a chrome-rimmed kitchen, soft 45 revolutions per minute music playing in the background, and a modest cake tin sheathed in foil atop a 1950s stove. Today we resurrect the little-known gem, the coffee marble upside-down cakelet deluxe. Why did home bakers layer rich coffee batters with light vanilla swirls, invert the tin and reveal a surprising pattern? What cultural currents pushed this dessert into kitchens, and then out of sight? The idea of a marble cake, swirled batters of light and dark, dates back to early 19th century Germany. In America, the upside-down cake technique emerged in the early 20th century, fruit and caramel piled low in the pan, batter poured on top, then flipped. What if you merged both, the swirl of a marble cake plus the surprise flip of an upside-down cake plus the trend of coffee-flavored desserts in post-war America. The result, a layered, elegant cakelet that spoke of novelty, prosperity, and mid-century boldness. Imagine a hostess unveiling a cakelet whose top had been masked, then flipped to show marbled coffee ridges glistening. Guests leaned closer, spoons hovered, conversation paused. This was more than dessert, it was show time. Then health trends changed, streamlined batter mixes arrived, coffeehouse culture shifted, and micro-desserts lost their place on the table. The cakelet quietly vanished. But when you bake, or even simply gaze at, the coffee marble upside-down cakelet deluxe today, you are tasting that moment, the intersection of swirl and flip, modern convenience and home drama. Join me through the rest of this video to uncover the full recipe, the mystery of its disappearance and how this dessert whispers secrets about the kitchens and cravings of a vanished era. Stay tuned. Picture a warm living room in the early 1960s, the radio softly playing big band tunes, a hostess carrying a tray with a long, golden spiral of cake drizzled in caramel, with crunchy nut streusel glistening under the chandelier's glow. That dessert was the caramel banana roll with nut streusel too, once a show-stopping centerpiece and now one of America's quietly forgotten treats. Why did this glossy, indulgent roll rise in popularity and then slip from memory? Stay with me, because this roll holds the story of post-war abundance, kitchen showmanship, and changing taste bud priorities. The concept of the roll cake dates back to European jelly rolls, but in mid-20th century America it evolved into decadent rolls filled with cream, fruit, or flavor infusions. Bananas, already a beloved fruit by the 1950s, became a symbol of tropical novelty and domestic optimism. Then caramel sauces and streusel toppings, crisp, buttery, nut-laden, added visual glamour and texture. Blog archives mention banana cake roll stuffed with a cream cheese filling and caramel sauce as a modern take of the idea. The nuts and streusel gave it the luxury feel for a middle-class home hostess looking to impress. Imagine the scene: a guest lifts a slice, sees the spiral of banana-flavored sponge, hears the gentle crack of the streusel, tastes the sweet caramel mingled with banana softness. This dessert wasn't merely eaten, it was admired. But by the 1970s and 1980s, health trends, simpler desserts, and boxed mixes displaced such elaborately constructed roll cakes. The banana caramel streusel combination came to seem heavy, old-fashioned, and impractical for everyday baking. In bringing back the caramel banana roll with nut streusel to today, we are doing more than reviving a recipe, we are reconnecting with a moment when dessert was a statement. When home bakers layered flavor and texture, and guests expected spectacle at the table. Imagine opening the freezer door in 1957 and reaching for a bag of golden peas. In that same era, homemakers were calling forth a shimmering, layered dish, bright green peas, creamy cheese cubes, and savory bacon encased in gelatin and mold into a ring. This dish, once glamorously known as the green pea mold with cheese layer 2, was the centerpiece of church socials, holiday lunches, and community potlucks. But over time it slipped away. Why did this bold, show-stopping salad vanish from dinner tables? Stick with me, because what you are about to uncover is less about the peas and more about a moment in American food culture where convenience, color, and novelty collided. Mold salads emerged in American homes in the early to mid-20th century, riding the wave of refrigeration and gelatin innovation. By the 1950s and 1960s, dishes that combined frozen peas, processed cheese, mayonnaise or sour cream, and sometimes bacon or pimento were widely published in home economics cookbooks and community church cookbooks. The layered effect, peas as base, cheese and bacon mid-layer, topping with creamy dressing, gave the dish theatrical appeal. For busy households, it checked all the boxes: bright color, no heavy cooking, and a designer look at an affordable cost. Picture a hostess gently unmolding this salad ring onto a pastel platter as guests pause conversation and admire the structured layers. Children lean in. "What is this green wonder?" they whisper. For the cook, it was modern, clever, and full of pride. "Look what I made." Yet beneath the gloss was a subtle echo of post-war optimism: inexpensive frozen peas, processed cheese, and social gatherings rebuilding community rhythm. Over time, as health consciousness rose, convenience foods were viewed with suspicion, and the aesthetic of mold salads lost its glamour, revealing the green pea mold with cheese layer today is more than a recipe revival. It is an excavation of a 1950s-60s mindset. Picture this: it is the day after a big holiday roast turkey. The oven is still warm, the family is gathered, and someone slides a gleaming white baking dish onto the table. Inside, a creamy spaghetti and turkey concoction bubbling under a golden crust. That dish is the turkey tetrazzini surprise baked 2, once a dazzling center-stage casserole, now almost forgotten. Why did this showpiece of post-war entertaining go from prize to passe? If you stay with me, you will discover its story of elegance, practicality, and cultural shifts in one bowl. The roots of this dish trace back to the early 1900s in America. Tetrazzini, named for the Italian opera star Luisa Tetrazzini, was originally a sophisticated pasta dish served in upscale San Francisco or New York restaurants. By the mid-20th century it transformed into a casserole favorite in home kitchens: cooked turkey or chicken, sautéed mushrooms, spaghetti or noodles, peas, creamy sauce, topped with cheese or breadcrumbs and baked. Imagine the dish at its peak: the hostess serving the bake, guests leaning in, spoons scraping the crust, warm laughter filling the room. It symbolized abundance and resourcefulness, the turkey carcass turned into something elegant, the spaghetti adding stretch, the creamy sauce showing modern convenience. But as the 1970s and 80s arrived, tastes shifted: lighter meals, fresh ingredients, less heavy casseroles. The turkey tetrazzini surprise bake quietly retreated from the spotlight. Today, reviving this dish means more than following a recipe. It means stepping into a moment when home entertaining meant more than casual. The layered textures, the creamy sauce, the baked crust, they tell a story of kitchen optimism and communal dinners. By the end of this video you will know how to make it, why it captured imaginations, and why it faded out. You'll see that when you resurrect this bake, you are resurrecting an era. Are you ready to dive in? Imagine it is a chilly December evening in post-war America. The electric oven glows softly while the hostess pulls a polished tray from the oven. On it rests a pan of moist bars, rich with chopped dates, crunchy walnuts, and topped with a gleaming coat of cream cheese icing. That dessert is the date and walnut squares with cream cheese icing. Once a beloved holiday staple in kitchens across the US, today it is quietly disappearing from our collective dessert memory. Why did such a warm, comforting bar become so rare? Stay with me, because this little square holds a story of abundance, convenience, and shifting dessert culture. By the 1940s and 1950s, dried dates and walnuts were widely available in American stores, and home bakers embraced bar cookies as an efficient way to create dessert for family and guests. Recipes published in community cookbooks from the era show date and nut bars, often from 1940s and 50s Farm Journal Christmas cookbook editions. The addition of cream cheese icing added glamour, a swirl of tangy richness atop a soft, fruit and nut base. These bars were more than simple, they were a display of holiday hospitality. Think of your grandmother's kitchen, the scent of date simmering, the nuts chopped, the tray sliding out of the oven. Guests arriving, tumblers of eggnog, the bar topic, "Oh, these date nut squares, where did you get that recipe?" For the baker, it was pride, for the guests, delight. But as the decades passed, dessert trends shifted, lighter fare, less dense sweets, minimal icing, fresh fruit cakes. The rich, heavy bars lost their spotlight. Today, when we bring back the date and walnut squares with cream cheese icing, we are resurrecting a slice of dessert history. We are acknowledging a time when bar cookies carried meaning, community, craft, tradition. Picture an elegant mid-century dining room, soft lighting casting a gentle glow over formica tables, and a hostess sliding an oval dish from the oven. Atop it rests a golden brown cloud of toasted meringue perched over a delicate lemon-filled sponge. This was the broiled lemon meringue puff cake too. But despite its dramatic presentation and bright flavor, this cake has all but vanished from American home baking. Why did this showpiece dessert rise so high, and then quietly slip away? Stick with me, tonight we uncover not just a recipe but a story of LD kitchens, changing tastes, and the sweet taste of nostalgia. The lore of meringue-topped lemon dessert stretches back to 19th century America. According to historians, the earliest lemon custard with meringue topping appeared around the 1860s. In the decades after World War II, home economics cookbooks and ladies' magazines embraced desserts that looked dramatic yet used citrus and convenience ingredients. A puff variant, sponge cake filled or topped with lemon curd, finished under the broiler with meringue, captured that spirit of modern yet homey. The sparkling meringue was not just dessert, it was spectacle. Imagine the moment. The hostess lifts the lid, steam swirling, guests lean in, spoons poised. They taste the tart lemon, the sweet meringue, the soft sponge beneath. It was nostalgia, ceremony, and connection all in one bite. But as the 1970s and 1980s introduced lighter fare, less showy desserts and a shift away from heavy sweets, this puff cake slowly faded from view. Modern bakers saw it as overly rich, too fussy, or simply old-fashioned. Today, reviving the broiled lemon meringue puff cake too is more than baking. It is resurrecting a moment when home dessert was bold, theatrical, and full of comfort. When you recreate it, or simply reflect on it, you are tasting that era. By the end of this video you will know how to bring it back, why it mattered, and why it disappeared. Imagine the mid-century dinner table, the circle of plated casseroles, the clink of cutlery on china, and at the center, a shimmering ring of layered cheeses and marinated olives, presented not just as a salad, but a social statement. That dish is the cheese and olive ring around the table salad too, once a prized feature in hostess-led gatherings, now nearly forgotten. Why did such a charming, visually striking salad fall out of favor? Stay with me, because beneath the cheese and olives lies a story of presentation, convenience, and cultural transition. In the 1950s and 1960s, American home cooks embraced mold and ring-shaped salads as symbols of modernity. Stored in refrigeration and assembled ahead of time, these dishes offered visual flair and ease. Bloggers today refer to the gelid cheese ring salad as part of this trend, rooted in the gelatin and cheese mold phenomenon of post-war kitchens. The cheese and olive ring variation brought savory elegance, layers of cream cheese, cheddar, pimentos, green and black olives, sometimes ham or salami, all shaped in a ring, eye-catching and ready to slice. Picture the hostess. She unmolds the ring, places it on the table amid the roast and the relish, and guests lean in to admire the colored olives embedded in the cheese layers. Children whisper about the green olive bits, adults praise the neat shape. It represented community, comfort, and a carefully curated home in a time of plenty. Yet, by the 1970s and 80s, tastes shifted, simpler preparations, fresh seasonal salads, fewer set-piece molds. The ring salad dropped off menus. Today, reviving the cheese and olive ring around the table salad too is more than cooking, it is reclaiming a moment when presentation meant as much as flavor. When you build that ring, you join in a tradition that once sparkled on holiday tables. By the end of this video, you will know how to recreate this retro salad, discover why it vanished. Imagine a summer evening in an American mid-century home, the downstairs window air chiller humming faintly, a hostess carrying a chilled rectangular pan of soft layers, golden apricot-soaked sponge, a cushion of whipped cream, and flecks of toasted almond peeking through. This dessert is the apricot almond icebox cake with whipped layers too. It once made a splash on kitchen tables, yet today it is almost completely forgotten. Stay with me, because behind its delicate sponge and cool layers lies a story of innovation, convenience, and changing dessert trends. The origin of the icebox cake traces to the early 20th century, when households adopted iceboxes, the precursor to modern refrigerators, which enabled chilled desserts to set without baking. In the 1920s and 1930s, no-bake cakes, layered cookies or wafers with whipped cream became wildly popular. The apricot almond version emerged later, as apricot half cans, almond extracts, and whipped layers became staples in mid-century home economics cookbooks. Picture that moment of presentation, the slices lifted, the layers visible, apricot tint, cream white, almond specks, and the coolness of the dessert whispers relief from summer heat. Guests marvel, kids sneak a taste before serving. For the cook it carries pride, I did something special. But over time simpler desserts and fresh fruit trends edged out the layered icebox cakes. The dessert felt heavy, over-engineered, and less aligned with the new kitchen culture. Today, when we bring back the apricot almond icebox cake with whipped layers too, we are reclaiming more than a dessert, we are reviving a moment when cold layers, canned fruit, and chilled presentation signified modern domesticity. By the end of this video you will know how to build the layers, why this dessert captured attention, and why it faded away. You will taste history in every cool forkful. Let's dive in. Imagine a chilly Monday night in the early 1960s. The fire is low, the electric oven hums quietly, and from the kitchen emerges a deep dish whose contents simmered behind the scenes: spicy beef, beans, tomato-kissed sauce, and on top a golden cornbread lid that rose like a sun. The dish is the chili spice beef and bean hot dish with cornbread lid too. This one-pan marvel once held center stage at potlucks, family dinners, and community suppers. Yet now, it has almost vanished from our weekly menus. Why did this hearty, comforting meal fade away? Stick with me, this is not just a recipe, it's a story of shifting tastes, post-war resourcefulness, and the fading of our one-dish dinner culture. The concept of the hot dish comes from the upper Midwest, a layered, baked casserole combining protein, starch, and often a crunchy or doughy topping. Hot dish became a staple in American casserole lore. The version with chili-spiced ground beef, beans, and a cornbread topping draws from two pivotal American food trends: the spread of chili-style stews, chili con carne, and the convenience of cornmeal baking. While chili con carne's roots stretch back to Mexican-American cooking. By the mid-20th century, home cooks adapted these ideas into a bake-off dish: ground beef, canned beans, chili seasoning, and on top a sweetish cornbread lid that both stretched the meal and elevated the presentation. Food columns and cookbooks from the 1950s-60s show such casseroles as economical yet special. Picture the hostess opening the oven door, the steam gently wafting, the cornbread crust slightly cracked at the seams. She carries the hot dish to the table, the guests lean in, the lid is lifted and the first scoop reveals glistening beef bin filling under a soft yellow blanket of bread. Children get the crisp edges, adults savor the spicy beans. For that meal, the dish was more than sustenance, it told of modern kitchens, efficient cooking, community feeding.